Hi, I'm Peter Llewellyn of NetworkPharma TV, and this is one of my so-called unscripted conversations where I get to chat with folks who I think have something interesting to share with us. So we'll see what we learn today. James, thank you very much for joining me. James West, you've recently joined Bourne Partners. I understand a healthcare industry-focused investment banking firm to develop their London European office. So I've sort of grabbed the opportunity to get you at this stage with the job change and so on to take an opportunity to look at the M&A landscape around us. Okay. So as usual, these unscripted conversations, not quite sure where we're going to go, but can we start with an introduction, James? In your own words, can you tell us who you are, what you're doing, and how you got there?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and look, thanks for inviting me on, Peter. Really, really appreciate it and everything that you're doing. So my background, for those who don't know me, I like to think as a scientist. So I read pharmacy at university, and I'm still fascinated by the science and everything that comes with it. Following that, I became a chartered accountant here in the UK, and then almost the last 15 years from that point to today, I've worked in M&A on a global basis, mostly in London, also New York for some time, but all the time in the life sciences sector, and a good chunk of that either in pharma or pharma services. Pharma services has really been like the what I'd call my power alley, where I spend most of my time. I've got most of my networks. I've done most of my transactions and advisory work. But as you know, this world works on a global basis. So I've had lots of European clients, lots of UK clients, lots of US clients in particular, and a few on the sort of other parts of the world as well. So yeah, that's me. You're right. Recently joined Bourne Partners, who are a very established US-based investment bank. Had always been pharma services. Recently moved into healthcare services, and been doing global deals for a long time, but needed to find a senior banker to really establish a presence in Europe. And I've just respected what they've done for a long time. They're a phenomenal team, so it was just the perfect fit with what I want to do, which is really build the leading healthcare investment bank, which is really differentiated to our peers. And one of the things actually we do, there's a couple of things which differentiate us, but we've also got a very strong research team. So looking in depth in certain subsectors. So we're talking about this just now. If you wanted to know everything on the preclinical CRO market, that's like we're doing all this stuff in real time. So yeah, super excited to be here, have a conversation, and also have born now that it's all public.
Excellent. Okay, so look, you know, it's been an interesting few years, certainly from where I sit. I mean, our background is we met when I was more focused on medcoms, and I know you had a specialist interest in sort of medcoms. I think I'm quoting it correctly when we probably had a conversation in 2022 after you'd got some headlines about how 2021 had been a sort of a mega year for sort of M&A activity in and around medcoms. Subsequently to that, it's been um, a little bit tumultuous for many in medcoms and those sorts of businesses. I mean, if we just start there, but I don't want to lose the fact that you have a much wider view on the pharma industry. But let's just state the sort of medical communications type business in the last few years. What are your observations as to what's happened?
Yeah, this might take a whole 25 minutes. This
Oh,
is
okay.
really interesting. So I track two main data points when I look at the market, which apply across, medcoms, but also more broadly. So the first is biotech funding, and then sort of related to that is pharma R&D spend, and then the other one is clinical trial starts or ongoing clinical trials globally. Like great stats in the US, so sometimes I just pick the US. Um, Generally, one follows the other. So generally, if you get a lot of biotech funding or pharma R&D spend, clinical trial starts is generally a bit of a lag, like 6, 12 months later, everything sort of follows through, and then it will start ramping up for the CROs and the medcoms guys and market access, and it all feeds on from there. So whatever metric you pick for those two, unsurprisingly, there's a huge spike in 2021. It's sort of flat 18, 19. 2020 was a bit weird, as you know, it's sort of a dip, and then towards the end of the year picked up again. 2021 was a phenomenal year, and all of the people in your network and beyond in medcoms or any other part of pharma spend, certainly from the conversations that we have, had a phenomenal year. And a lot of M&A also follow that trend, because if you're
Right.
having a great year and growing at 20%, 30%, 40% top line, great investment opportunity. Now, I think what a lot of people could see coming, and it did happen, was that cool write-off. So we had the big spike, it cooled down, and actually biotech funding and clinical trial starts in the last couple of years are about where they were in 18, 19.
Okay.
But the market sort of built up so much momentum in those couple of years that it's been tough for a lot of providers. But they're working on a clinical preclinical asset or product which has been put on pause or a trial delayed, or all these various reasons, which has meant that 20 or 30% growth hasn't been there. Actually, a lot of the market has been pretty flat. It's been a very different state. So what I will say to round this up, I believe I'm an optimist. I very much am optimistic and passionate about the sector. That when you take a step back, and I look at these data points on clinical trial stuff and funding, if you look at it over the last 20 or 25 years, and you zoom in, everything goes a little cycles of lots of spending, a little drawback, lots of spending, a little drawback. We've just seen a really exaggerated one in the last couple of years, but you zoom out of that and actually it's just a straight line going upwards. So I'm relaxed about it. This market's always going to be here. It's always going to be attractive, but it's just when you look at the micro dynamic of it, everything's sort of coming off, and that's it spooked a lot of companies, right? If you're the CEO and owner of a company and your largest client says, "Oh, we're reducing our preferred vendor list from X or whatever the number is down to 5. But really sorry, we had to go with a larger group or a more specialist group." Like, it's rough. If you're doing good work and through no fault, but farms under a lot of pressure, continue to see layoffs. R&D funding is more competitive than ever, and it's a tough market, but that will come back. I'm 100% confident in that. But it's meant for the M&A market that also has been tough, because selling business which is flat top line is hard. It's hard, and we're seeing buyers be applying a lot more scrutiny to those opportunities than they did. So I think that's the headline really. It's the overall trends are really positive, but we're still in this dip which we're sort of coming out of, which is a tougher patch for everyone.
It's difficult to understand the bigger picture when you're you're sitting there suffering, sort of thing. But it has been tumultuous. But what you said is we're coming out. I'm going to pin you down there slightly. You said we're coming out of it. Can you crystal ball gaze a little bit? Are we actually coming out of it, or are we just heading towards coming out of it, sort of thing? Or is that just a stupid question?
No, good question. So I've got the anecdotal evidence of the people that I meet, particularly in the preclinical drug discovery world, where it's really like the heart of funding starts to move through the funnel. But also quite recently, the listed CROs, like IQVIA and Icon, etc. They've had a pretty tough time. I think I can say that publicly over the last couple of years. If you look at book-to-bill ratio and a few key metrics. But over the data recently published from them on how their growth prospects look, they've had a huge surge. And if you look at the share prices for those handful of publicly listed CROs, they're doing really well. So, and when you dig into it, you can have a look at sort of what that means for their backlog and what their bookings are looking like. But again, that is just show that uptick. And now that's really the start of the journey, because if you imagine that sort of peak and trough, you need to come out of that trough. But biotech funding in Q1 this year look solid. Haven't seen the Q2 data yet. But I think from what you see in some headlines of biotech funding being raised, that will flow through. It just takes time to flow through the system. But look, I'm positive about it from what I see. It's just, I think everyone forgets how long it takes.
And whether you got the stamina to last it out. I mean, if I was running an agency at the moment, would I be advised to sit tight for a couple of years, sort of thing?
That's a good question. So it depends what you want to do. Look, the market will come back. I think what we're seeing more than ever is, you've got to really figure out your right to win. So if you go in for an RFP and you're one of 5, why would they pick you? is it therapy area? Is it expertise? Is it geography? Is it service? Is it, what gives you that right to win? I think when you really clearly got that defined, that that helps keep you there. But yeah, I mean, look, and that's what we're seeing. So on the businesses that we're either representing or are in the market, the ones who are bucking that trend and who are growing in these times are some of the ones who are much more specialist, and can continue to grow because they've picked a certain aspect of their business and said, okay, we're not trying to do everything to anyone. We're going to turn down a lot of the other stuff. We're just going to do this very specific thing.
I suppose, one of the questions I wonder in an environment like this, and it's been talked about for the last few years, is, the place of the big networked type of group as opposed to the boutique specialist. And there was a view certainly 3 or 4 years ago that all the boutique types would disappear as we're just going to get dominated by a few big full service agencies across the clinical development and whatever spectrum. What I'm actually seeing at the moment is a bit of an explosion, or it seems to me, in boutique specialist type suppliers. Again, I just wonder what your view on that is, or can we read too much into any of this anyway?
Yeah, it's been interesting. I've been doing, as you know, transactions in the space for nearly 15 years, and the role of those big marketing networks from an M&A perspective is really interesting because when I started, that used to be the number one, the tier one buyer group of all those large networks. And they used to put in deal structures which today look, quite different to where the world is. And we watched that evolution, or certainly I did from the M&A perspective, of having that as the main buyer group for those boutique agencies. And then it moved to the larger, typically private equity backed medcoms groups. And now there's many across Western Europe and the US. Today, I think for the boutique agencies, I think there's still a place. Either, like we're saying, actually, some of the larger marketing networks come back. There's been a bit of a renaissance from an M&A perspective of wanting to do deals and wanting to grow expertise. And I think, look, for the boutique agencies, I think now is a phenomenal time when, more pressure than ever for digital and pharma. There's more pressure than ever for, novel therapeutics where you really need some specific expertise in communicating that to healthcare professionals or payers or patients, whatever the audience. So I think if you can carve out some niche, like I said, if it's the medium of what you're doing or if it's the therapy area or capability, it's great that you're hearing that because we're hearing the same thing.
Okay, and what about the obvious question, new technology and AI and so on?
Well, look, it's a part of every business that we take on. We're an M&A advisor, so typically we sell businesses, and it's always going to be part of that conversation with buyers, always. And look, businesses, as you all know through your network, people are having to adapt because it's much more competitive now. I hear a lot of CEOs saying, well, okay, well, does this mean in a few years' time we're going to wipe out a large part of my workforce and have AI sort of slotted in? And does that mean also I need to develop my own products to be selling to pharma because of that? Like, what does it mean on productivity and also product? Look, at the end of the day, I think everyone has had to shift what they do or rethink how the world is. Most of the time now, it's about productivity and about making sure that you're, from what we hear, agency owners and business owners are making sure their team are trained in the right tools to help them work productively. I think that's the first step. You can think about in-house tools, which sometimes help if you've got a larger organization to make sure that everything's synced up and help you can draft this or do that literature review faster or whatever it might be. So we are seeing it impact. I think my advice to every business owner is you need to have a strategy for it. And it doesn't mean you need to spend millions of dollars on building your own in-house tech platform, but it's just making sure you've got the right tools for your team. Because ultimately that's what it comes down to. Can you deliver for your client? In the most effective way. But we also know that pharma is super paranoid about their data. So, it's not like you can just take something from a client and plug it all over the web through some ChatGPT or equivalent. So yeah, sort of doing what you can in the realms of um, yeah, having a pharma end client.
So again, if I'm in this mythical agency owner, do I want to be calling myself, AI native, you know, agency, or do I want to be talking about myself as an agency? And obviously, we embrace AI in the way we work. There's a difference of emphasis there. How much more attractive am I in your terms if I've got AI in the title, as it were, as opposed to I'm just doing my business, and of course we use AI.
Yeah, it's a really good question. So it's funny you mention that. I always think when I'm speaking to a business, like what gets me out of bed in the morning is advising market leaders across any sort of scale, small companies, medium sized, large companies. I'm really passionate about advising as market leaders. Um, what we're seeing, what we're seeing is I put that like title, like how would I describe this company in one line to someone? It's quite a good exercise as an agency owner. Like, how do you differentiate yourself in one line? But for me, it's therapy areas of peace, which comes up time and time again, from buyers and investors into my world or the pharma services world, who really are saying like, yeah, to the point of like, what's the right to win? Like, how can you stay a specialist? And I have a lot of conversations of, yeah, what therapy area are they in? If you're too broad, does it, are good things and bad things? Do you trade them off for scale? Because at some point, you have to go into multi-therapy areas. So I would say for the AI question, I would always put therapy area first, or yeah, depending on what sort of business, maybe even type of service first if you're a specialist, and then AI second. Like AI has got to be like at some point it'll be the framework holding a lot of the industry up. Um, so to differentiate, I would say therapy area first if you've got it, or if you've got a differentiated product or service.
Okay. Just generally speaking, you've got a lot of experience of seeing these M&A type events happening and so on. I mean, what's your advice and what are your observations about what happens in terms of culture and people at an individual level?
Yeah, it has been one of the core parts of making a successful M&A transaction for many years, and it still is today. So I always describe it as you've got the financial parts of doing a deal, um, much more quantitative, much easier to measure, and then you've got the non-financial parts, and that's quite often, take your example of an agency owner or a business owner in the sector. It's like, what are their personal objectives? What do they want for the team? Do they want anything for the legacy of the business? What happens to all of that stuff, which is important. And I've advised on many deals where, typically we run an auction, so you have a sort of a number of bidders, and you funnel that down to the final one. And quite often, not quite often, but sometimes that final bidder isn't the one with the highest value. Depends on the seller, but if it's a seller who has choice, and those non-financial elements are important. I see it time again where they will pick the best home for the business first, and then we structure the deal to make sure so the economics work. But yeah, look, culture is really important. So this is always where, when we run an M&A process, we make sure that you know exactly what you're getting into, and when you get down to those final few interested parties or investors or strategic buyers, you've got a really clear picture of how that will work in practice, like who you're going to report into, where is your team going to go. They're going to keep the office, they're going to move, maybe there's some hybrid working, remote working. What happens to that? What does this look like? And it's quite interesting because, again, it's just what we're saying. On 15 years ago, we saw the large marketing groups being one of the tier one buyers. What I've definitely seen over the last 15 years is private equity become a larger part of deal making in this sector. And that quite often is, solve some of those questions. If they're like, oh, well, I don't want to sell my company because I lose everything I've built over the last 5, 10, 15 years. Private equity solves some of those issues. We're saying, well, take investment, you're still a CEO, you still run your business, we're just backing you to do it. And we'll sit on your board, we'll offer some strategic advice and can help you do other stuff if you need money or whatever it might be. So that's sometimes an interesting middle ground, which a lot of agency owners and business owners have been yeah, just really attracted by. So yeah, we continue to see that trend of a lot of private equity interested in the sector.
Let us pick up on that point and just push back if you don't feel able to answer this one. But does private equity funding work well in an agency environment?
It can do. I would say it depends on the alignment between the owner and the fund.
Right.
So private equity is a huge industry, and everyone will have a different flavor of working on the
Right.
different theses. So I think if there's alignment and you know what you're sort of signing up for, it can work really well. I've seen it work phenomenally well in the past. But yeah, again, to that point on it's aligning objectives. I guess the one that we've seen, and you might have seen this as well, is some private equity are very much what's called like buy and build. So they'll come in and their whole thesis will be, we want to put multiple agencies together in as short a time frame as possible, which is fine. But again, as a CEO of the sort of that leading agency to start all of it, I guess you've got to be on board for that, and you've got to really embrace it and make sure the cultural fit of everything you're buying into your group fits. Um, so I guess it's just that cultural piece, as opposed to just growing for scale, because yeah, sometimes that can create its own challenges, particularly in a market which has peaked and then we've seen tail off. You can get in some challenges there. But yeah, it's all about just making sure you know what you're signing up for. Having good advice along the way. Sometimes, we speak with family offices where, private equity, you're right, they deploy capital by investing into agencies, and then they have to return that capital by selling the agencies. That's the business model.
Yeah.
But sometimes you get what's called like an open-ended fund or a family office, which they can deploy the money, but there's no time horizon where they have to return it. So there are options there.
Right.
But, my job and my job is to provide options to a seller. So business owner, wherever in pharma services, or an agency owner, my job is to say, look, here are the options, here are the offers that I've gone around the market and I've got this package. This one might be private equity, this one might be a large listed corporate, this one might be something else. And say, like, everyone comes with a different flavor. You as the agency owner, you will know what's important to you and the team. I've given you the options to pick from, and that's one that I can't decide for them, for my clients. But my job is those options, and being really showing my 15 years plus Bourne's like 20, 25 years of where these groups, what the future looks like. So yeah, and to be honest, the private equity has sort of flocked to the sector because it's so attractive. It's like sort of like bittersweet. There are a couple of those case studies where it's been challenging for some groups, but it goes to show it's such an attractive part of the market that people get a lot of attention.
But they flocked 5 years ago. I mean, if I'm understanding you correctly, I mean, I guess the temperature's gone down a little bit, but the positive outlook is there. So but they're not flocking like they were 5 years ago, are they? And are those guys who came in 5 years ago slightly feeling that, well, things have gone a little bit bumpy here, or bumpier than I expected?
Yeah, and look, I see the same thing.
Right.
I would say overall levels of interest from private equity or generally are where they've been. The difference is in today's market, we've seen a slowdown of businesses coming to market because, like say, many have had a bumpy or choppy or flat top line. If you don't have to sell today, why would you?
Why would you? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
You'd wait until you've sort of got your backlog or your book to build, whatever the metric you're tracking, and you're sort of increasing your revenue up, and you've got 6 months or 12 months of track record of that. Great, go and do it. But interestingly, the businesses that we see who are specialist or have got a niche or are plowing ahead and they are growing at this time, we're still seeing valuations really hold up to where they were in the peak of 2021 and 2022, which is evidence to me that there's still enough interest and appetite in the sector. It's just there's a very, very, very small sliver of businesses who can grow and are profitable and have all those attractive characteristics.
Okay. So I guess to end on, it's a yes, it's been choppy couple of 4 or 5 years, but I mean, you've said several times you're optimistic about the future, so we should stop on that optimistic note and go. The only way is up, guys.
The only way is up. Exactly.
Okay. All right. Look, we've run out of time as always. I love these conversations, but I know I can speak for you. If anyone's interested in following up, they can talk to you via LinkedIn is the easy way. Yeah.
Cool.
And the more discussion that happens, I think the more value we will get out of this. So thanks very much for joining me. For those of you who want to know what I'm up to, go and have a look at Network Pharma TV or reach out on LinkedIn. That'd be great. But thanks, James. And I think we should just say goodbye and wish everybody a good day. Take care. Bye.